I was reading a story over at The Hill that said if any other Republican president had nominated Amy Coney Barrett, she'd easily receive 70 votes from senators. It would be, a bipartisan effort. We've also had many Supreme Court justices. I noted them in yesterday's segment. Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg that were overwhelmingly supported. I mean, Scalia was unanimous, 98-0, and Ginsburg was 96-3. Yet we're in such ridiculous partisan political space, partisan political space. We're getting just insane paranoid delusion, fake news, smears, a desperate attempt to smear Amy Coney Barrett, who seems, I got to tell you, man, I watched some of this hearing with ACB. I think she might be one of the most qualified people to serve on the Supreme Court. You know why? You see that viral meme where she was asked, are you taking notes? Do you have notes in front of you? And she holds up a blank notepad. Amazing. She was citing references to cases and correcting senators from memory. I mean, my understanding, she's a professor at Notre Dame. Wow, I was impressed. Very, very intelligent, excellent recall, smart, principled. I'm very, very impressed. And I'm not a fan of, I was Catholic when I was little, never been a big fan of organized religion growing up. And I have tremendous respect for Amy Coney Barrett, which brings me to the absurdity of today's story and a little bit of disappointment, but I understand. So first of all, Democrat Senator Mazie Hirono is slammed for asking Judge Barrett if she ever sexually assaulted someone. What? She's a 48-year-old woman, mother of 7. What a stupid question to ask. I cannot believe they subject Amy Coney Barrett to this. And look, the Democrats in these hearings have done a good job for the most part. This is not one of them. But the media on the outside and the far left and the leftists that are trying to smear Amy Coney Barrett are making everything worse. I want to read this story to you and talk about what people are saying. What a ridiculous thing to ask someone. I am offended for Amy Coney Barrett, though I don't think she cares because she knows the extent to which the insanity is going to ensue with these things. But take a look at this. I'm disappointed. Amy Coney Barrett apologizes for calling sexual orientation a preference. I certainly didn't mean and would never mean to use a term that would cause harm to any offense to the LGBT community, she says. This is complete BS. First of all, I'm going to tell you right now, orientation. This is kind of the half joke I made on my main channel the other day. Do you know where orientation derives from? The word from Orient. You know what Orient means? Asia. It's an offensive term. It is considered to be racist to refer to Asia as the Orient or as people as Oriental. But Orient actually derives from the Latin from the East. And I believe it's Occidental. I could be wrong, from the West. Oriental. If preference is offensive because it implies choice, orientation is offensive because it implies weakness of Asian individuals, which literally I pulled up an article because you can find anything racist. This is such an absurd thing. And I'm disappointed to see, Amy Coney Barrett apologizing for this. It's not real. They're lying. And I have proof. Do a Google search with a time range starting before the Amy Coney Barrett hearing, and you'll find tons of websites saying sexual preference. These people just make S up. Take a look at this. The Advocate on September 25th, quote, to come from that history, to be able to now, as a director, be telling these stories about young people who are just comfortable with who they are, no matter their sexual preference it's just glorious and so satisfying. The Advocate on just the other day, a revealing moment. Amy Coney Barrett blasted for anti-LGBTQ plus term, sexual preference. It is such insane fake news. Is that how desperate you are to smear a good person? You sick, sick people. Dirty, dirty smear merchants, I think Sargon of Akkad called it. Here's the first story. Mazie Hirono, you lunatic. Amy Coney Barrett has been asked in a Supreme Court nomination hearing whether she has ever sexually assaulted someone. The Senate Judiciary Committee held its second day of hearings for the 48-year-old federal judge on Tuesday. Mazie Hirono, a senator from Hawaii, asked Barrett a question she said she asks of all Supreme Court nominees. No, just Justice Kavanaugh. Hirono quoted Chief Justice John Roberts, who in 2017 acknowledged that the judiciary is not immune from the problem of sexual misconduct. She then asked, since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any physical or verbal harassment or assault of a sexual nature? Barrett replied, no, Senator Hirono. Can't believe it. Hirono asked, have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct? No, Senator. Hirono's line of questioning drew parallels with the hearing for the most recently appointed Supreme Court Judge, Brett Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh was nominated in July 2018, and we know all about the fake allegations against him. Hirono asked Kavanaugh, since you became a legal adult, yeah, we get it, the same question. Some saw Hirono's line of questioning as amounting to a perjury trap. The idea that if it later emerges that sexual assault was committed, the nominee would have committed perjury. Oh, please, it's so stupid. Amy Coney Barrett did not assault anyone, and neither did Brett Kavanaugh, you crazy people. Here we go. Random guy says Hirono has two goals. A perjury trap for ACB in regards to a religion. Laughable. Gamesmanship. Thinking she will hit on religion but go after decisions. He says Mr. DDMIA should have all options covered. They will go after her decisions, not just faith. Others objected strongly to Hirono's question. Are they really going here? Asked Dinesh D'Souza. You kid you not. Wow. That's depravity, man. This is what's happened to the Democrats. Now, the Republicans are sort of puffing up Amy Coney Barrett, saying she's great and all this stuff. And yeah, I get it. But come on, seriously? I said this the other day. You know what I would do if I was in politics? Honorable Amy Coney Barrett. Honorable Amy Coney Barrett is her title. You are a professor at Notre Dame. Sounds like you're qualified. Case closed. That's a yes vote for me, everybody. I'm going to go get lunch. She's a professor at Notre Dame. Her qualifications are clear here. Okay. And I got to say, that's impressive. No notes. Seriously. She's recalling specific cases, precedent. Very, very smart woman. Very smart. Look, I have concerns about how the Supreme Court will rule on certain cases, but I'm not going to sit here and panic and think they're going to overturn the right to gay marriage or anything like that. That's crazy. I'll tell you what, if they start overturning fundamental rights, I'll be as mad as anybody, and I'll vote for somebody else. But let me tell you something right now. I've never been this hardcore partisan individual. I'm a fence sitter for obvious reasons. I don't have strong enough opinions one way or the other on the way the country should be run. And I like hearing what people have to say. It's why I started doing journalism. As for Amy Coney Barrett, the only thing I can say is that she's absolutely qualified, and probably more qualified than any other justice on the Supreme Court. She seems to be a tremendously excellent at her job. Explaining things, breaking things down. I recently saw a segment. She was talking about stare decisis and some other things. I'm not a legal person. I'm like, wow, like this lady knows her stuff, man, and savvy, qualified. But we're not in that world anymore. Right now, what the Democrats are trying to do, and of course Republicans, they believe that justices are supposed to be legislators, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. Now, I think it's fair to say that most Republicans just want constitutionalists. That the justices that conservatives are nominating and request are those that would uphold the Constitution as it was intended, not as it's interpreted. Whereas Democrats just want to pass new legislation and affect the law of the land. Take a look at this fake news. Amy Coney Barrett said, I certainly didn't mean and would never mean to use a term that could cause any offense to the LGBT community, Barrett said after questioning by Mazie Hirono. So if I did, I greatly apologize for that. I simply meant to be referring to Obergefell's ruling with respect to same-sex marriage. Barrett made the remark, blah, 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 and it was fake news. It's not an offensive thing. The Democrats are desperate to find a way to smear her, and this is Mazie Hirono's big mistake. This is Democrats falling into a trap because they can't help themselves. The American people are watching this, and they're probably confused right now to hear the phrase sexual preference is considered offensive. Because why? When? How? Who decided this? Was there some grand marketing meeting or like trigger meeting? None of us go to these meetings and have any idea what you're talking about. But I hereby proclaim, as is my right, that the phrase sexual orientation is offensive and racist. It's been proclaimed 100%. Now, why don't I get to assert that? Why can some random weirdos in news say, actually, preference is offensive? Okay, well, then I hereby declare as an Asian person, orientation is offensive. Stop saying it. It has nothing to do with rising in the East. It has nothing to do with Eastern alignment. And it stems partly from this idea that Eastern men are weak. So Oriental was the idea that they were meek and timid among the ideas of what the Orient was supposed to mean. Meek and timid Asian men. I'll have you know, okay, We invented the compass 1,000 years before y'all in Europe. Gunpowder, brutal murder and warfare. And then you've got the crazy Japanese experiments, man. The East is anything but meek. But look, I really don't care about what words you use. If you're offended by preference, well, too bad. If you're offended by orientation, well, too bad. It's just words used to describe things. What I take issue with is the hypocrisy of them saying, we're going to say orientation instead of preference without considering the origin of the word orientation is. You don't get to declare a word is offensive and then not look at the words you're using. I can play the same game they're playing. I'm sad to see Amy Coney Barrett having to apologize for that. That's stupid. But I'm more sickened by Mazie Hirono asking this ridiculous question, an extremely offensive question that should, I hope Americans wake up to what's going on. How psychotic has everything become? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes. Stick around and I will see you all shortly.